Number 1. Reframe the debate. Instead of debating over whether or not you're racist, debate over whether or not they're anti-white. When someone calls you a racist, the two common responses are either, "No, I'm not racist," or "Yes, I am racist." Both aren't great, as one puts you on the defensive and the rest of the discussion will be about trying to prove you're not racist. The alternative, saying you are racist, might feel good and feel like a nice gotcha moment, but it won't win any onlookers' favour as they have been conditioned to have strong negative reactions to anyone associated with that word. Instead, you should state that racism is an anti-white slur and accuse them of being anti-white. The key in many of these debates is to make it about them being anti-white, as it puts them on the back foot and gives you the moral high ground. It is much easier to debate when you're on the offensive, so try not to let them put you in a defensive position. Another important thing is to always point out that what we are trying to do here is no different than what non-whites do. There are plenty of Black, Jewish, Asian advocacy groups that work for their own group's interests and are often applauded for it. Yet we have no socially accepted groups that advocate for white well-being. To deny us this is proof that they are anti-white. I often find asking these people if they treat non-whites with the same rules is all the proof you need. Number 2. Focus on the anti-white narrative. The fact we are victims of an anti-white narrative is easily demonstrable through the fact we have hate speech laws that only target whites, discriminatory hiring or affirmative action in jobs and universities that disadvantage whites, and no laws to protect us as indigenous peoples, and no rights to our homelands or civilizations. You don't need to go into biology, history, or ideology as it's too abstract and will go over most people's heads. So avoid the temptation of veering into the untold truth of historical events or the shadowy plans of sinister elites. The goal is to get the average person on our side, and the average person does not have the time or motivation to understand these things. The average person is also only anti-white because they think it is the right thing to do. So by showing them that whites are the victims of an anti-white narrative and they are discriminating against us, and in the case of them being white themselves, it is likely to appeal to their sense of justice, and they'll have a personal reason to advocate for white well-being. You can debate whether or not playing the victim is a good thing, but this guide is for practical results and maximum optics and potentially public discussions. Number 3. Change the language. When people hear words like racist, fascist, bigot, they have a very emotional response which is the result of a lifetime of anti-white ideas subconsciously absorbed through the media, academia, etc. Trying to convince them otherwise, or convincing them to give hate a chance, or something stupid like that, is likely a waste of time. To free yourself and others of these bad associations, you need to consciously change the language. So for example, instead of using the word minority, use the word non-white. Minority is used to make it seem like they are minor, weak, and there's less of them than there are of us. This is not true, as there are only 6 million Scots and 1.4 billion Chinese people, for instance. Instead of referring to these people as communists, liberals, the radical left, Antifa, tradcon, boomer, coomer, simp, or certain racial groups, you should just call them anti-whites. Simplify who the enemy is. When people hear the names of all these groups, they'll find it hard to follow, and it can overwhelm you and them. This also shows the enemy is independent of race and political affiliation, which means you cannot be called a bigot for targeting specific groups. Instead of white genocide, use the term white erasure. When people think of genocide, they often think of openly mass-killing groups in a war. You will put people off with the hyperbole and they'll just say it's not real and not happening. White erasure is a better term and isn't specific to the ethnic destruction. You can demonstrate it happening culturally, such as statues being destroyed, traditional customs being phased out, etc. Now keep in mind that a lot of these points I've covered here, this isn't a vanguard strategy, and this isn't an ideologically pure strategy. If you're looking for that, you've got to look elsewhere, because this is just instructions on how to win debates with anti-whites. especially when people are watching and you have the chance to move some people over to the white well-being sphere. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it useful, and if you have anything additional to add in the comments, just let me know.